in 3, 2, 1. It's all you.
Thank you. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Josephine Spencer, and I'd like to welcome you to the White Lake Zoning Board of Appeals. This board is a quasi-judicial board, which consists of 5 members. In order for your variance to be granted, you must receive a majority vote from the full board. Again, in order for this board to grant a variance, you must prove a hardship or practical difficulty exists. Unfortunately, personal hardships of financial concerns will not be considered by this board. If your variance is granted, you have 6 months in which to pull the required permits on your variance, or your variance will expire, and you must reappear before this board. If your variance is denied, you have the right to appeal this decision. By state statute, you must appeal to the circuit court, and you have 30 days in which to file an appeal. There is no other township board that can overrule this decision. All cases will be heard in order in which they are presented on the agenda. I will call the case, staff will give their review, and the proponent will have 20 minutes in which to speak. The board will then ask questions of the proponent, and the public will then ask questions of the proponent, and the public hearing will then be over. Each member of the public who wishes to speak will have 3 minutes in which to do so. If you are representing a group of homeowners association, you have 5 minutes to speak. However, no other individuals from this group will then be recognized to speak. After the public hearing is closed, the proponent will have 5 minutes to address any questions or concerns. It will then be brought back to the board for a consideration, a motion, and a roll call vote. And with that, may we have our roll call vote, please, Hannah?
Yeah. DeHart? DeHart?
Here.
Powell?
Here.
Shellac?
For me, this is Dennis Strelchuk.
Present.
Spencer?
Here.
Walls?
Here.
All present.
Thank you. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag, United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God,
Indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Justice for all.
Do we have a motion to approve our agenda?
So moved, Madam Chairman.
Thank
Second.
you. Support?
Support.
All in favor, aye.
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 Do we have a motion to approve the
Aye.
minutes of July 23rd?
I have a couple amendments to the minutes.
Okay,
My last name is misspelled on page 5 and on page 9. It is missing one of the plethora of C's that are in my name, but not one in the first name, just to make it fun.
any other corrections? Do we then have a motion and approval?
I'll make a motion as amended.
Do we have a support?
Support.
All in favor, aye.
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 Thank you. Our first case,
Sorry, Joe,
yes,
because we're meeting on Zoom and everyone is just doing a voice vote and we don't know who's saying yes or who's saying no, all motions need to be passed on a voice or a roll call vote. For approval or denial of any type of motion needs to be a roll call vote.
okay, so should we do the approval of the agenda and the minutes again then for you?
Sure.
Okay, then we're going back to whomever approved and supported the approval of the agenda. If you're still in favor of that, then may we have a roll call vote on that motion, please, Hannah?
Yes. DeHart?
Yes.
Powell?
Yes.
Shellac?
Yes.
Spencer?
Yes,
Walls?
Yes.
and again for the approval of the minutes of July 23rd.
DeHart?
Yes.
Powell?
Yes.
Shellac?
Yes.
Spencer?
Yes,
Walls?
Yes.
thank you. And with that, new business, the applicant is Donna Marie and James Bauer. The address location is 2039 Ridge Road, also identified as 12-18-351-056. The request is the applicant is requesting to construct an accessory building requiring variances from 3.11.q water feature setback in Article 5.7.b accessory buildings or structures in residential districts due to the proposed accessory building setbacks from the lake and a sideline. And with that, may we have staff report, please?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good evening, board members. The applicants are proposing to construct a pergola in the rear yard at 2039 Ridge Road. This property is located on White Lake and zoned R1D, which is a single-family zoning district. The pergola would be in the rear yard. It would be 12 feet by 16 feet in size. That's 192 square feet. It would be west of the house. And again, this property has frontage on White Lake, so there's a 25-foot setback from the water's edge for any structure. The pergola would be 16 feet from the water's edge, so they're seeking a 9-foot variance for that. And then when you look at the plan, which is not drawn by an architect or engineer, so I don't know the validity of the lot lines or the location of the water's edge. It shows the post of the pergola on the north side and the roof of the pergola on the north side encroaching within 5 feet of the side lot line. And the ordinance prohibits accessory buildings or any building from encroaching within 5 feet. The Zoning Board of Appeals doesn't have the authority to grant a variance to permit a side yard setback of less than 5 feet. So if you are inclined to approve this request, the motion does include a condition that it be relocated outside of the 5-foot setback from a side lot line. So with that, the applicants are present, and I'd be glad to answer any questions.
Thank you. And before we have questions of staff, for the record, 16 owners within 300 feet were notified of this request. No letters returned in favor, no letters received in opposition, and no letters received in favor of. And with that, does anybody have questions of staff? Mike?
Just a couple, just to make sure that I'm understanding this correctly. And I apologize for being so generic, Justin. I was wondering what the actual definition of a pergola is versus a picnic structure or any other covered structure.
Thank you. Like pergola, pagoda. I mean, all these things are a little. Thank you. I'm just affirming what you asked.
So all of this falls under accessory structure, but the pergola is going to have 4 posts, 1 in each corner, and it's going to have a roof on it. My definition of a pergola would be 4 posts with, a slatted roof. This will be a full covered structure. It's going to be permanently attached to the ground. So it is an accessory structure.
Okay, so the definition of pergola is not really pertinent in that. So a structure that has 4 posts, but open slatted roof that only takes up maybe 10 inches or so in depth versus a fully shingled roof, it's just a definition. It doesn't change any of the discussion, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
And then I missed something in my initial presentation. There are the zoning ordinance article 7 section 37 lists the standards that the Zoning Board of Appeals needs to look at when they're considering a variance. There are 6 standards. All 6 standards need to be met in order to grant a variance. So as you're considering this case, you should look at those standards and make sure that each of those are met.
Okay, if I might, and I apologize for being a little dogmatic on this. So I'm going to take you down a path to help me understand something. So if the homeowner wanted to just put 4 posts up in the same location that they're proposed now, no roof or anything, just the 4 posts, that would not be considered a structure, would it?
If it's permanently attached to the ground, yes.
So the 4 posts sticking out of the ground with no roof or anything on it would be considered a structure, even if they weren't tied together?
Right, they'd be 4 separate structures.
All right. So the next question then would be, by tying them all together around the top with a 2x10 or slatting it, is still the same thing. It might tie it all into one structure, but it's still defined as a structure as well, correct?
Right, the idea is that when you have the setback from the lake, 25 feet should be totally clear of any type of structure for visibility reasons. There's a handful of reasons why that 25-foot setback is in place.
Okay, that helps me out a great deal because there's a very large roof on this structure, and I just wanted to get it set in my own mind as to the definition. The other question I had was, it's defined certainly as the distance off of the water edge and off of the north property line. You were clear on that. I could not tell from the drawing how far it is from the being proposed from the structure itself, from the principal structure.
And that's an issue with the drawing that was submitted. It's not a site plan of the entire property. It's limited. So the building isn't identified on there, the house. So if you're looking at the plan, I think you may be able to see towards the bottom that they show concrete. I don't know what that is, and if that's like a deck, like leading up to a house. So the plan is, it doesn't show, it's not labeled where the house is.
Okay, well, we can ask the owner that, certainly. Is there a requirement as to how far the structure can be placed from the house in order to be considered an accessory structure?
If it's within 10 feet of the house, it's considered a part of the house. So if
which changes the setback requirements, correct?
Right, it would then have to meet the 10-foot side yard setback for a principal building. It would still have to meet the rear yard setback and the setback from the water's edge.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
You're welcome.
I'm sorry. If I could, really quick, the zoning ordinance defines structure as anything constructed or erected which requires permanent location on the ground or attachment to something having such location. So that just supports the position Justin took. It would be 2, or I should say 4 separate structures if it were not tied together by a roof.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And with that, if there is no more questions for staff,
Wait,
then,
I have a question.
okay, go ahead, Debbie.
Justin, you said that the structure was into the 5-yard setback on the side. Do we know how far it is?
The post of the pergola is 4 feet from what I believe on this plan is the north side lot line, and the overhang of the roof is 3 feet from that side lot line.
And we go by the overhang, so we're well into the 5 feet.
Right. Well, a structure setback is measured to the outside edge of a footing, but there's another section of the ordinance, and I can find it and tell you, it doesn't allow eaves, roofs, gutters to go 5 feet into a setback, within 5 feet of the setback.
And then if there are no other questions, Mr. Bauer, you're up. Let us know what it is that you're requesting, please.
We're requesting, approval of the variance. We can adjust the border of the pergola so that it's at least 5 feet away from the north property. The purpose of it for us is to shield us from the sun and obviously from the rain. Where our house is located, the sun really beats down on our paver deck and doesn't allow any kind of comfort when we're out there. We do have a concrete patio that comes out from the house about 20 feet, according to if you can see it in the drawing there. and past that is where the paver stones are, and the pergola would exist where the paver stones are. So we could adjust the dimensions and the distance from the north property, of the pergola.
Thank you. Does anybody have questions of the proponent? Mike?
I had the opportunity of meeting Mr. Bauer when I was out there, and he was very kind to show me what he was proposing. He showed me the irons for the north property line, and he did understand that he may be too close to that north property line. It did share with me that he could move that further away from his north property line. What I didn't know is, number one, is the proposed pergola, can it stay 10 feet away from your existing house, Mr. Bauer? And then and maybe staff might be able to help me interpret this as well. The dimension you have on your drawing to the lake is drawn parallel with your property line, when really by definition, it's the closest distance to the water. And if you angled that, angled it a little bit more perpendicular to the shoreline, it's going to be less than 16 feet. And that's going to be very, very critical. If this board wants to approve a variance, we're going to want to make sure that we get that setback from the natural features proper. You would hate for us to grant a variance, and then once you get it set, it doesn't fit. And so I'd like you to discuss with me how far this is off the house, and then what would happen if your dimension is wrong and you're really closer to the lake than 16 feet.
It would be 10 feet away from the house. As far as the water, the shoreline in front of our house is kind of concave. So at the north part of the property line, it's I believe it's approximately 16 feet, but as it curves in towards the middle of the property, it's a shorter distance than the 16 feet.
Yeah, so we're going to want to be very wise if we discuss that further. Maybe a question for staff. It shows that it's the overhang is the same all the way around, and the applicant has said he can move it further away from the north property line so it stays outside of that 5-foot mandatory setback. Is the eave considered an architectural feature for the distance between the house and the structure?
No, not at that. So the idea is that this structure, the roof, the overhang of the roof, the gutters, those are talking about setbacks from a lot line, not encroaching within a setback to the house.
So the measurement to the house would be to the
outside edge of the post for
the post. Okay, thank you very much. That helps me. Thank you.
I just want to mention real quick, when this request came in, we did ask for a survey from the builder, from the property owner, and this is what we received. So I did mention to them that this, verifying the location of the property lines, verifying the location of the water's edge, that was going to be something that the Zoning Board of Appeals was going to look at closely.
Thank you. Any other questions of the proponent?
Do we know how many feet the structure is from the house, or the proposed structure would be from the house? I mean,
the applicant said 10 feet. It's not shown on the plan. So the plan doesn't confirm that.
he said he had 10 feet. I wondered if there was room in there to move it back.
There is room to move it back closer to the house, but then when you are within 10 feet of the house, it's considered part of the principal structure and has to meet the 10-foot side yard setback.
Right, okay.
You know, the big question here, and you need to look at the review criteria in the ordinance, and does a pergola asking for shade in the backyard rise to the level of a practical difficulty?
Thank you, Justin. Lisa?
Thank you. I just, I don't attend very many of your meetings via Zoom, and I know this is a public hearing. So I was going to ask if Alex can confirm that there's nobody in the waiting room wanting to speak on this matter.
That's
Yeah.
exactly what I was going to ask him. Thank you, Lisa.
All right, good. I should have known you'd have it.
Yes, I can confirm there's nobody in the waiting room right now.
Thank you, Alex. And I'm going to open the public hearing up. Seeing that there is none in the audience, I will close the public hearing and bring it back to the board for additional discussion or a motion. Mike?
Madam Chairman, could I please ask the applicant one more question?
Absolutely.
Mr. Bauer, there's a huge issue for me that we discussed briefly while we were out there. And that's the impact that this might have on the neighbors, and specifically the neighbor to the north, and the view that he's used to over the years from the north. And in my personal opinion, there's a really big difference between an open slatted pergola roof that's maybe only 10 inches in depth, that allows sunlight to get between it, but when the sun gets out so far, it blocks the vertical slats, block the direct sun getting to the applicants or the people below, and the roof that you have on there now proposed. It's a very high roof. The roof itself is going to overshadow the size of the pergola. And I expressed to you that I was concerned about the impact of that high roof to the view out of the home to the north. And so I'm kind of asking you whether or not you're absolutely set on the style roof that you have being proposed.
No, we're not. And I think that we could adjust the pitch of the roof to what would the board would accept as the dimensions for the pergola. So it doesn't have to be as high as the original plans. It's a small enough structure where it's not gonna endure 10 feet of snow on top of it or anything like that. So just enough pitch so that the rain, runs off of it, I think would be fine.
So there's certainly a method to have a relatively flat roof with a fiberglass or sometime a translucent covering on it, so the water then will sheet off towards the lake or whatever, but it doesn't have any really discernible slope to it at all. And in my mind, that's kind of what I was thinking about. That's why I asked the definition of a pergola. The next question I have to ask you is a little more personal. I know exactly what your family's going through with your parents or in-laws. Are they bound to the walkout level of the house, or do they utilize the main floor as well?
They can utilize the main floor, but stairs can be an issue because my mom has Parkinson's and she can't really navigate them well. And in order to do that, someone has to assist her.
Okay, because I did notice when I was out there, you have a beautiful home, great view of the lake, and you have a really nice covered porch that's attached to the house, and then a second level porch as you work your way down to the lake. And then this would be another covered area down at the walkout level. So I just wanted to point out that it appears that they have room to be able to go outside and get the fresh air without necessarily being at this level. So thank you, Mr. Bauer.
Thank you.
So board members, what's your pleasure?
I mean, you know, we have a northern exposure with our back deck. And it does get scorching hot and very bright, especially in the evening. But I'm hearing the personal concerns here, but I'm also struggling from my experience to see it as like a practical difficulty. And I say this not in any flippant way at all, I promise. But I mean, we've thought about getting an umbrella for the back deck. We've thought about spending a little bit more money and actually bringing in some larger trees. And yeah, gosh, I mean, the personal part of this, I totally hear. I'm just struggling to see especially because of the impact as well on the view line down the water. It's just tough for me.
So I have a couple of thoughts on this, and perhaps some of my colleagues can help me out on this. Yeah, I'm struggling with it. It seems like that it perhaps may be a self-created hardship, and that you know, it's that a practical difficulty doesn't necessarily exist here. But again, you know, I'm looking for some help from if some other folks have some other views of this, because it doesn't seem like that we're unreasonably preventing the applicant from using their home and for its permitted use here.
I agree with you, Dave. I can't find a practical difficulty or hardship existing either. There are other alternatives that could be used, such as Nick said, an umbrella.
I have a question.
Large trees, yeah.
Is Justin, and maybe you can help me, the freestanding pergolas that you can purchase, those are not attached, or if they are attached, they're bolted on the corners. Those, would they be considered a structure, an accessory structure?
If it's attached to the house, it's considered a part of the house. If it's a freestanding, something that you buy that doesn't have a permanent attachment to the ground that can be relocated and moved around, then that's not an accessory structure.
So a covered one that has some stakes that tie it down to keep it from blowing in the wind, or a couple of bolts in the corners, not considered attached to the ground?
Correct.
And my concern is that we have 16 feet from the northern water line, and this property does dip. Without a survey, we really don't know how many feet we are from the water line. Those are my concerns.
Thank you, Debbie.
I have another question. So if the applicant made the footprint of this smaller, where there would be no variances required, then the applicant would be able to do this by just pulling a permit. Is that correct?
Right. Is if they met all the standards of setbacks, then they would not need a variance.
So just by reducing the size.
Potentially, if they could reduce the size and relocate it out of the 25-foot setback from the water, out of the setback from the north lot line, then this could all be done without a variance.
If I may ask the applicant, was there any consideration given to that? Or I'm sorry, Madam Chair.
Yep. Yeah, you're fine, Dave. Go ahead.
As it is, we wouldn't be able to set it back because the like I said, the water, the shoreline is concave in the middle part of our house. So, and the back part of the house, or we have a concrete slab that's in front of the house that we can't really put the structure there at all. And I guess making it smaller, we couldn't really, we couldn't really do that in that area that we have. It's, we do have an umbrella out there, but it's not sufficient when the sun's, past 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and there's no area to put any large trees because of the small distance, for grass and the retaining wall. Does that answer your question?
I believe so. I'm just struggling with if your comments rise to the level of meeting the bar of meeting the practical difficulty of not being able to use the site for its intended use, meeting that threshold. That's what I'm struggling with.
Board members? Does anybody wish to entertain a motion?
So what happens if there's no motion?
I don't know.
Presented?
Lisa, what happens if there's no motion?
The board should make a motion, or else the case is going to be tabled and they'd have to come back. There's not going to be any new information if they were tabled and came back. So the board should make a decision.
Okay, I'll make a motion.
Go ahead, Dave.
Bear with me here a minute, please.
Absolutely.
I move to deny the variance requested by Donna, Marie, and James Bauer for parcel number 12-18-351-056, identified as 2039 Ridge Road, due to the following reasons. That this request is a self-created hardship and a practical difficulty does not exist. Denial of this request does not unreasonably prevent the owner from using the site for its permitted use.
Is there a support on that motion?
I will support.
Thank you, Debbie. May we have a roll call, please, Hannah?
Oh, and point of
Sahar?
information.
Go
A
ahead.
point of information. So a yes vote is a no vote is a yes on the
Correct.
project.
A yes is a vote to deny.
Thank you.
DeHart,
I vote yes because I feel that there are alternatives to creating, and it is a self-imposed hardship.
Powell,
I vote yes as well. I believe it's been pointed out that the applicant has other means of providing shade, and it's a very usable area, and it does not prevent the owner from utilizing his property
Shellac,
Vote yes for the reasons stated.
Walls,
Yes, for the reasons stated.
Spencer,
Yes, I see that this is a self-created hardship that we are not, by denying this request, we are not denying the proponent use of his property, and that there are other alternatives to this. As I said in the beginning, sir, there's no other board that can overrule this board. Your only alternative would be to take it to circuit court.
Okay.
And with that, calling case, our next case, Kim McFadden, 9693 Bonnie Briar is where she lives. 9120 Buckingham is where the location is, which is also described as 1214-280-014. The applicant wishes to construct a second-story addition on an existing one-story home and add an attached garage that will require variances to Article 3.1.6.E R1D, single-family residential, front yard setback, side yard setback, lot coverage, and lot size. The variance to Article 7.28A, repairs and maintenance to non-conforming structures, will be required due to both the value of improvements and the increase in cubic content. For the record, 31 owners within 300 feet were notified. One letter was received in favor, one letter was received in opposition, and no letters were returned by United States Mail. And with that, may we have staff report, please?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Kim McFadden is the applicant, and she's seeking a few different variances to expand a non-conforming structure and to exceed the allowed value of improvements to a non-conforming structure. This property is located at 9120 Buckingham. It's located on Pontiac Lake and zoned R1D, which is a single-family zoning district. This property is a double lot. It has 95 feet in width at the street line. It's almost a quarter acre in size. The proposal, as the chair said, is to construct a two-story addition to the existing building, which is 878 square feet. The project involves adding 450.5 square feet to the first floor and constructing a 1,262.5 square foot second story on the building. The total size of that portion of the house would be 2,591 square feet. A 4-car, 2-story garage addition is also proposed to replace the existing 440 square foot single-story detached garage. When you include the second story, the new garage would be 2,184 square feet in size. There would be a breezeway that would connect the garage and the house. The plans identify that as a portico. It is a breezeway. That's 66 square feet of a covered roofed area. Once the garage becomes part of the house, it's considered part of the principal structure. So the total size of the building as proposed is 4,775 square feet, which is an increase in 3,897 square feet from the current situation. As I mentioned, the existing house and the parcel itself are non-conforming. The R1D zoning district requires minimum lot area of 12,000 square feet, and this parcel is 10,250 square feet in size. The house is non-conforming to setbacks, so the R1D zoning district requires a minimum 10-foot side yard setback and a minimum 30-foot front yard setback. The house or the building that's there now is 15.8 feet from the front lot line and 1.2 feet from the west side lot line. Article 7, Section 28 of the zoning ordinance limits the value of repairs and maintenance to a non-conforming structure in any consecutive period of 12 months to 50% of the state equalized value. Based on the state equalized value of this building, which is $3,680, the maximum extent of improvements cannot exceed $1,840. This project has a value as listed on the building permit by the applicant of $165,000. That exceeds the allowed value of improvements by 8,967%. That section of the ordinance, Article 7, Section 28, also does not allow the cubic content of non-conforming structures to be increased. This project would do just that. Additionally, Article 7, Section 23 of the ordinance states non-conforming structures may not be enlarged or altered in a way which increases the non-conformity. Again, that's the situation that's being proposed tonight. The lot coverage on this property would also be an issue. 20% is the maximum allowed in the R1D zoning district, and with the addition, they would be at 23.61% lot coverage. There's also an issue with the front yard setback of the addition. At its closest point, it would be 18 feet from the front lot line, so they're requiring a 12-foot variance to encroach into the 30-foot front yard setback. Like I said, the existing structure is 1.2 feet from the side lot line. The addition would also be 1.2 feet from the side lot line. Article 7, Section 27, subsection 7 of the ordinance prohibits the Zoning Board of Appeals from granting a variance to permit a setback of less than 5 feet from a side lot line. And that's to ensure emergency access for fire equipment and other vehicles in the event of fire or other emergency. The Township Fire Department did review this project. They looked at the plans and recommended denial of the addition due to public safety concerns. They did write a letter that is attached to your staff report. With that said, on behalf of the building department, the fire department, and the planning department, staff does recommend denial of the requested variances. This project would far exceed the allowed value of repairs and maintenance to a non-conforming structure. Again, that's 8,967% over the allowed value of improvements. That section of the ordinance does not allow the cubic content of nonconformities to be increased. Article 7, Section 23 of the ordinance, again, does not allow for the alteration or enlargement of a nonconforming structure. That this project would do just that. Again, with that section of the ordinance that prohibits the Zoning Board of Appeals from varying from the side yard setback less than 5 feet, the board can't grant the requested 8.8-foot variance to allow a 1.2-foot side yard setback. That should not be considered by the Zoning Board of Appeals tonight. This property, with all that said, it is a double lot. It has 95 feet in width at the street line. There are opportunities for the applicant to build on this parcel in conformance with the ordinance. With the value of the structure at $3,800, it should be demolished and a new house should be rebuilt in conformance with the ordinance. With that said, we do recommend denial. There is a motion in your staff report prepared for that. The applicant and their representative is present tonight, and I'd be glad to answer any questions.
Thank you, Justin. Are there any questions at this time for staff?
Nope, I don't have any.
Okay, with that then, Kim, if you or your attorney are ready to proceed, feel free to do so.
Yes, thank you. Let's see. As far as the side lot, it's 1.4 feet from the lot. The house does stand that close to the back end. The basement is there. I will never be able to put another basement onto that property. It will not work. That is, the property won't hold, the land won't let me do that. That's one. Two, so I lose the basement. And as far as the property goes, for safety purposes, I suggest, I had an architect suggest that I put in a firewall to stop as a fire retardant. Also, the property next door is there's a driveway, more than a sufficient amount that vehicles that the fire department can get to and from both houses. I also talked to the owner of the property next door. He signed my petition saying he is fine with it and would appreciate the structure being erected also. Let's see. What else could I?
20%.
Oh, the area of the property, I don't know, what else?
Well, let me
The
let me
others,
interrupt you here, Kim. You and your attorney, first off, is still muted, so I don't know if he can hear us or not. But you and your attorney only
I
have
can.
20 minutes in which to plead this case before us. And we will time them. We do time them. So you will
Okay.
only have 20 minutes.
This is also, this is Al Pulowski, my builder. Let's see, the variance,
Let the attorney.
oh, sorry, okay.
Let the attorney.
Dennis?
Yes. There was the construction about the 20% improvement. I was kind of startled by that because this is a community whereby you have sewers. If you go south where they all have sewers to your adjoining townships, I found that, 35% is the permissible percentage amount that you can take and exceed, But yours is made like your 20% from before indicates it's more like a cottage community, which it isn't anymore. You're a very viable community. And I was very surprised that you have 20% because I don't really think that's well founded in your ordinance. And I would request that you take and reconsider that position on that one, especially. The current applicant, it's at 26.4% according to our figures, would be the improvement over the over area. I don't know where your figures came from because I've never seen them before. The construction cost not to exceed 50% of the SEV. I think there's a very extenuating circumstance here. This circumstance was that the person was very infirm that owned this property before and was living in there. And the assessor was kind enough and had the compassion to really lower the assessment so that it wasn't a burden on that person financially. And they lowered it to the point where, it was almost inconsequential even as a tax base. But then what happens is that when my client took and bought the property, all of a sudden she inherits this assessment. And it's almost as if she's paying for the hardships that were extended to the prior owner, which I don't think really was the intent of this particular ordinance. I mean, let's face it, this ordinance has to serve two ways. This is not an advocacy hearing. It's just a matter of presenting both sides of the facts. And, the whole idea of having a zoning ordinance is to service the people, meaning the owner of the property, and the community. And all these beautiful improvements and everything, in my opinion, would take and go to nothing but foster improvement for the whole community. And I think that's been lost in the specifics here when you bring up all these different points, because it's almost become to the point of an impossibility to take and do anything unless you land balance the whole property and everything else and tear everything out. You have a good structure sitting there right now. Sure, according to my information, it was 1.4. The corner of the property was 1.4 to the very boundary, but there is almost a 5-foot clearance on the other side. So it gradually goes that way. And when you look at safety and the welfare of the whole community, there is more than enough access to fight the whole thing. If anything, a fire or anything broke out for safety purposes. And plus that would give you a 360-degree access for any type of concern of safety around that property. I don't know what to tell you because I'm not really familiar with your setbacks, but the figures I had on setbacks were, yes, there was a variance required for the front yard setback, but I don't think that would be a problem. I don't know. I would leave that to my client to handle that better because she knows what she wants with that garage and everything. It would have a second story on it, but it would be used for storage. So, the different matters that have been brought up here are, I don't think the ordinance was meant to apply to a situation like this. You have good structures. You have situations that happened before my client was an owner. And now she's being penalized for it. And the whole plan and everything is for an improvement for your community. I mean, that's what your ordinance is supposed to do. Do something for your community. One thing that I was astounded from, I had sent into the White Lake Township offices 71 signatures approving, all the neighbors, the immediate neighbors to that whole area, all approved what my client wanted to do on there. And I think that should be taken into very serious heart. You know, my client doesn't mind taking and working with the appeals board to say, okay, we don't want to give you all this, but here, would you be willing to do this and modify it? But I think that to take and have somebody tear down a good building on a piece of property that is viable for the whole community and going to be a beautiful structure, I think that's detrimental to the owner and really is, you could say, a governmental hardship imposed on them. So, I mean, I understand that there are a few nonconformities, but, you know, the one thing that I was surprised about too was that you were including all that space as a total part of the house, making it such a large consideration. But that's understandable. This is a little tiny cottage that's a good structure. And when you want to make some type of home that's a beautiful home in that community, it's understandable that you're going to exceed that percentage. So this is merely it's more so a remodeling and then new construction. So you have both sides of it. And I still say that my client really is fulfilling the real intent and purpose of the township ordinance, and it's based on what you're saying here. You're so restrictive on it that you want to deny it. It's obvious that there's a denial already drawn up, and what I'm trying to do is just try to persuade you to really open up your minds and say, well, wait a minute here, you know. I don't have any more. Kim, do you have anything that I might have missed?
Other than the fact that when I came before the board in January, it was suggested or requested that I prove that the structure is sound. I hired and I gave you the copy. I gave the board a copy of the letter from the engineer company. Who was the engineer? Lopez Engineering. They came out and proved that the structure could hold. They gave you a letter saying that the second floor that the structure is sound. He was impressed how sound the structure was. And other than the fact that there was 71 signatures, the neighbors are interested. I have a list of everyone that's signed. See the map around that little black thing is the house, the property we're talking about. All of those are the signatures of the people that you're concerned about. The 300 feet, I went a little further than that. I tried to get the entire set of islands. People don't like answering doors during election time too, by the way, particularly with a woman with a clipboard. It didn't go over well.
You know, Kim, one other thing too, so that the board, Kim, just so the board understands, I did include that letter. It was from Lopez Engineering, Inc. And I did include that letter. It was dated January 30th, 2020. So I just want to let the board know, I did include that some months ago to give you plenty of time to look at the data that I had put together.
And we all did receive that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Chair,
Yes,
may I comment?
certainly. Thank you.
So a couple different things. The intent of Article 7, Section 28 of the ordinance, it applies specifically to situations like this where the value of a building is so low that expanding the nonconformity is just perpetuating it for years and years to come. The intent is that over time, nonconformities will be reduced or eliminated. That's the situation that we have here. With the lot coverage standard, if they were to build a new house, and they may be able to build the house as designed in a different location on the property, as long as all the setbacks were met, the building height, if all the zoning requirements are met, planning staff can administratively approve up to 30% lot coverage if, like I said, if those setback standards are met, and the ordinance says if the lot has sanitary sewer connection, which this does. So there is opportunity for that waiver to be granted by staff. There's nothing from stopping there's nothing from stopping the neighboring property owner to the west from building 5 feet from the lot line. That's their right, whether it's the current owner, the future owner, they can do that by right. Then with a 1.2 foot setback, which is shown on the survey provided by the applicant, there's only 6.2 feet. There would only be 6.2 feet between a structure. Because the fire department, they specifically want 10 feet. That's the minimum they need for access when they have to lay hose in the event of a fire to get around structures. So while there may be on the current neighboring property more than that space now, there's nothing from stopping a future owner from building on that site. So like I said in the previous case, Article 7, Section 37 of the ordinance lists 6 criteria that the Zoning Board of Appeals needs to review when they're considering an ordinance or a variance from the ordinance. All 6 of those criteria need to be met. And then just to note, there was the petition provided by the applicant that was in the packet. That first page of that petition should be read into the record, and then the number of signatures. And then there is one letter of opposition that should be read into the record as well.
That's
Could
correct, Justin.
Could I ask a question real quick?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
State your name.
Alan Plowski, has White Lake issued other permits with variations to the guidelines? Yes or no?
Excuse me, I don't think that's for a subject for discussion here. This is specific to this case, and that's what we're looking at, sir.
He just said.
No, we can only, sir, we can only address and discuss this piece that is before us this evening.
Right.
But what?
I'm sorry.
Point of order.
Would be,
Madam Chair, you should just move on from that line.
Okay,
I am.
The statement I have, the one thing that no one has mentioned also is the fact that there's a telephone pole right in the middle of the property. So I
And
can't.
Kim, we mentioned this once before. Utilities can be moved. We mentioned that in January.
And the septic and the sewer line is there.
And it can be moved.
Okay.
Any other?
May I make
Questions
one more comment, please?
Yes.
I just want to make it real clear that my client has not contributed to any nonconformity here. It's more so things that of activity by the township and the prior landowners and everything else that created this whole situation of a necessary hardship now to try and take and improve the property. I think that it's very reasonable for the improvement to the property and to the improvement of the community for its benefit. And I don't think that's within the intent of this entire ordinance for your township. I think it's just contrary, opposite of what has been stated by the board members so far.
Joe,
I have no more to say.
if I could jump in just to address.
Yes, go ahead, Sean.
Just said, what's out there is legal non-conforming. What's out there, no one is trying to take away. So I'm going to push back on what you just said because it's not accurate. Your client is proposing to make many modifications and changes and additions to the structure and to this home that are going to cause this cascading effect. And, that's pretty clear. One thing I want to go back to in your original presentation and challenge is that you made some statement regarding the previous owner and their financial situation and the assessor simply choosing to arbitrarily lower the value of this property to help somebody out. I'm going to say that that did not happen because that's not how they operate. There are other ways to deal with hardships, but I want the record to reflect that that is not what the assessor does. The assessor doesn't go out and say, do you have money to pay your taxes? Are you an indigent? So it's going to lower your assessment. That is patently false. That did not happen. That does not happen. And the record should reflect that that is an inaccurate statement by Mr. Strelchek. And that needed to be said.
Mr. O'Neill, may I be permitted, Chairman, to respond?
Yes.
Okay, quite frankly, I can't find anywhere where assessor would put something so low for the assessment on the property.
It's because
That's valuable property that far exceeds the present, even you'd go by the value of the property and do it the half value for the SCV. I think the facts prove themselves. We could argue about this all night. So there's your point, my point. I just wanted to make that as a consolidated discussion between us.
Sure.
And you know, I'll be honest with you. You know, I guess my point is that times have changed, and yet here's White Lake drawing hard lines in the sand. You're not a community of cottages anymore. You're going to see a tremendous amount of changes that people are going to take and add on to homes, make them really huge, and everything else. It's happened all around. Anywhere there's water around here. This land around here is so very valuable, it's going to explode. You're going to be like, just like Novi and Northville and all those other communities experienced. But I don't think that your ordinance really is up to date I don't think it's ready for what you have as a giant wave coming your way.
Well, I'll say this. The giant wave started 30 years ago, so we are ready, and our ordinance does allow for exactly what you're talking about, which is evidenced by the fact, and Justin stated that, you know, this is a 95-foot wide lot. Someone could build a 75-foot wide home on this 95-foot wide lot and meet the setback requirements, and in fact cover 30% of this parcel, not 23%. So she's building this monster house and only covering 23%. We'll let her cover 30. She's just got to move the thing. So it comes back to the fact that what's out there now is legal non-conforming, but when you want to start expanding it, that's when these provisions in Section 7 kick in. And it's to do just what it's doing tonight, which is to prevent a dilapidated structure. And if, you know, everybody went by this structure, they could see a boarded up window, they could see tarps over the roof in the garage. I mean, the value is what the value is because that's what the assessor of the township felt that the structure was worth. I mean, almost nothing. And I think that's where you can't have it both ways. You can't buy a house that's worth nothing and then argue that it's super valuable and it should be kept and it's an asset to the community. I mean, it has such little value. It absolutely, this is probably, we see these all the time, but this might be the most extreme case of a structure with such little value. You know, no one would really try to salvage this. I mean, they would scrape it and they would move it and they would start over and try to eliminate variances rather than ram variances through and make a bad situation worse. And, you know, that's our responsibility and the responsibility of the fire department and the building department, as Justin stated in his review. And so, you know, these are small lots out here in general. This is one of the larger lots in the lake, I'm sure, with 95 feet. So we're just trying to follow through. And there are letters that I would ask the chair to read into the record when the public hearing is open, because I think there's a petition and I think there's another resident letter. So we should cite specifically all of those and at least, Joe, at least summarize the position, whether it's in favor or against. And Mr. Strelchek, you also mentioned there's a motion proposed for denial. Well, that's the recommendation of Justin. There's also a motion in their packet for approval. So we don't recommend, we give them both motions. So just so you know, there is a motion for approval or denial that's pre.
Mr. O'Neill, I withdraw my statement on that part because I wasn't aware of that. And I must just say though, your valuation based on backing up the assessor, I'm not criticizing the assessor. I said that was a compassionate thing to do. But knowing the properties all through Oakland County and everything, if I had this lot to sell, just if it was a plain vacant lot, it'd be worth a fortune on that lake right now.
Right.
Yeah, thank you. You have two minutes left. You have 2 minutes.
Pardon?
You have 2 minutes to make your point, sir.
Okay, but I'm just saying the assessment isn't even close to the value of the property.
And
So there's two different parts, sorry, there's two different portions of the assessment. There's the building value and the land value. The land value is not included in the value of the building that's calculated for the 50% of repairs and maintenance to a non-conforming structure. The other piece of this, that one point it was mentioned there's a basement at this house. There's nothing in the zoning ordinance that says a single family house is required to have a basement. So there's that. And again, this is not a back and forth discussion. So we should try to keep to our normal format of reading the case.
I'm just saying
there's 1 minute.
Okay, I'm just saying that the one point is that when you have a solid structure on the property that's even vacant there, it really increases it even more in leaps and bounds. That's all I've got to say. I'm just bringing up the practicalities of assessment values because I've been doing it for many, many decades.
Okay.
Kimberly,
you.
do you have anything you'd like to say?
Thank you. With
Thank
that, Ken or Alex, I'm sorry, Alex, is there anybody in the audience that is coming for the public hearing? Do you know?
Okay.
Nope, there are no callers. We had one person trying to join as a computer, but there was no name, so I did not let them in. So I just wanted to remind everybody, if you're calling in, then you have to call from a phone so we don't get any kind of crazy video going on.
Can someone provide the phone number just in case somebody is listening?
It's on the top of the agenda, which is on the township website. But for anyone who cannot see it, it's a toll-free number, 1-888-788-0099. And you have to press *9 to raise your hand. And then when you do that, Alex will make us aware of it and you'd be able to comment during the public hearing portion of this.
Yes, I just want to clarify that you have to call. You cannot join with your computer.
So Alex, I'm going to give you about 10
There are people trying to get on. I keep getting texts that people are trying to get on.
Well, if they're not on though, Kim, I can't recognize them. I'm sorry.
The people are saying that they think you're cutting them off on purpose. They've been trying to get in. They keep getting an error code.
Well,
No, they have to call. I received 2 notifications, but they're from computers, and we don't know what they're going to put on our live stream. So they have to call that.
Telling us that the
Point of
call
order.
is not going through.
All right, point of order.
They're saying that.
Point of order. So the agenda was published. There was a notice sent out to surrounding property owners within 300 feet of the access instructions for Zoom tonight. So it was published with plenty of time in advance for people to be aware of how to access the meeting. I would leave the public hearing open for a minute or two, and then I would move on. But there cannot be continued shouting into the computers. So we need to refrain from doing that.
Thank you, Justin. With that, then I will open the public hearing up, and while we're waiting to see if people can come through, and Alex will notify us, I have in front of me a petition signed by 71 people. It says property variance approval petition, subject approval by surrounding property owners of the variance applied for 9120 Buckingham Street, White Lake Township, Michigan. Variance, remodeling and alteration of existing structure consisting of 1, enlarge existing structure. A, add second floor onto existing structure. B, allow 28% increase of structure footprint, which includes porch, deck, walkway, first floor, and garage. This would allow more than the required 20% footprint. C, house and garage will not encroach any further on either side of adjacent properties, lake, canal, or the road. 2, remodel existing structure to conform to surrounding area. 3, increase the state equalized value of the property. I have no objection to any of the details and approve the requested variance filed with White Lake Township by the 9120 Buckingham Street owner. The plans were available for my review at the time of the signing this property variance approval petition. And again, there were 71 that signed that. I also have a letter from Thomas Johnson at 9136 Buckingham. and it's in regards to the property at 9120 Buckingham. And taking a look at the plans and what they wanted, I find not only is a lot of the changes can cause a danger, not only to them, but also to the lots on either side and the residents. Setbacks and lot coverage by structures that would make it hard for fire and police if there was an emergency. A 3-car garage is overkill for a single family. It would be hard to build and maintain the setbacks. A car or pickup truck parked outside of the garage would block the view of cars traveling on Buckingham, as well as people and children on foot or other blind spots. If a trailer or car was hanging out just a little bit, it might cause someone to veer to miss it, and that could create a hazard, any or thing or anyone. The road is not that wide to allow for sudden movements to avoid it. The fire department needs to take a close look at what they want to do, as well as emergency personnel. Looking at 7.37, I do not see where it meets the requirements as stated. Safety is the main reason for the zoning requirements. That is why Mr. Spencer said no to it, and so do I. The garage would have to be moved closer to the house to meet the setbacks required in order for it to be built. The deck that is proposed must also meet the setbacks. This goes for the first story as well as the second story. Kim McFadden does not live on this part of the island. It seems like they are just looking for a house to flip. The cost of the work that needs to be done would exceed the cost that is allowed. I have lived here for 40 plus years and have seen this area improve with the work of the boards in White Lake. If we ignore what we have done, it will be a step backwards. And with that, those both are part of the file. Alex, do we have any takers on the public hearing?
Yes, we have one caller. It is, the last 4 is 0357, and I will let them in now. Caller that is 4610, you have to call from your phone and not from your computer. So if you can redial that number on a phone, and I will let you in. Thank you.
And just real quick, that phone number again for anyone that's out there, 1-888-788-0099. And if you press *9 on your keypad, it will raise your hand and Alex will know that you're wanting to speak. Again, public comment is limited to 3 minutes per person. So Dave, you're keeping time. Can you?
Yeah. Yes.
Thank you, Justin. And for those that are joining us now, you will have 3 minutes to which to speak. I'm going to ask you to please let me know whether or not you have signed the petition. If you have signed the petition, only one of you will be allowed to speak because we will treat this petition like it is a homeowners association. And with that, can the first caller identify themselves?
0357, go ahead and unmute.
Oh,
Alex, do they know to hit *6, I think, to unmute?
So *9 will raise their hand, and caller 0357 has already done that. They just have to unmute on their side.
But on the phone, don't they have to hit *6 to unmute on their side?
Yes.
Hello.
Yes. Yes. You're talking to the chair of the Zoning Board of Appeals. Can I have your name and an address for the record, please?
Michelle Wise, 9481 Bonnie Briar.
And Michelle, did you sign the petition?
Yes, I did.
Okay, then you will be the only one that we will recognize on the petition to discuss this. So go ahead.
Just a point of order before she begins. If you could please maybe mute your computer in the background. I believe we have a few second loop on it.
Okay.
Just so we can hear you more
Yes, I
clearly.
did.
Sure
Okay,
thing.
let me mute
I just
my
want to make
computer.
sure we hear what you have to say.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Yes, this is Michelle Wise at 9481 Bonnie Briar. And I would just like to say that I did sign the petition for Kim McFadden. And I've lived in this neighborhood for 31 years, 32 come February. I think what she's asking you to do, and for your permission, is to improve the lot that she bought. I would hope that you can move forward like I did 12 years ago when I built my addition. I was very thankful that the board gave me the variances that I needed. And I'm very pleased to say that it didn't take me this long to get as far as Kim's trying to get with the property that she's trying to improve. And I just hope that you'll consider her, variances and move forward and let her do what she needs to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle.
Madam Chairman, could I make one comment? Because
Not during the public hearing. No,
Okay.
I'm sorry.
I would eventually, please, if I could reserve it.
Oh, absolutely.
Thank you.
Alex, I'm ready for the next person.
There's nobody waiting at the moment.
Okay, with that, then I will close the public hearing. And you're now up, Dennis.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah, don't fight with the last name. Anyways, I was just going to bring up.
See it, it's too small.
Anyways, with that last objection that you read into the record, I did not see it. I was not aware of any objection whatsoever by any property owner. But I just wanted to bring up the standpoint based on the statements that were made in the objection. It looks like it was based on an old plan concept, which was completely outdated. It's been revised, and there's a new plan that's been placed with the township because it referred to a deck and everything else on it. That's not in the current plans. Am I correct, Kim? Kim, is that correct?
No, the current plans, they have the current plans.
Oh, they do? Okay, because it sounded like it was the old.
Referring to the cantilever, the second floor does go up right there at the corner. The deck is there, but it's not, it's been moved and the
Right,
new
been
plans,
moved.
yeah.
But he was talking about non-conforming.
Yeah, the cantilevered area, the second floor cantilever was moved because I don't remember who on the board in January said it was too far, too close. So we moved it over 10 feet from, or I don't have the plans directly in front of me. We did move it over. The only thing we didn't change, we got rid of the front. And the only thing we didn't change was the second story right above that corner that we're arguing. We're discussing, not arguing, excuse me.
Yeah, I thought he was referring to that where you were going to cut out that corner notch out of the building and brought it closer to the and increase the non-conforming.
No, the corner notch was cut out.
No,
Justin, you have the plans with the corner notch cut out, correct?
Correct.
I just thought that the person who wrote the objection was referring to it.
No, Sean, Al and I went and met with Sean and Rick, and we discussed certain things, and things were moved per Sean's suggestion, original suggestion. The only thing that Sean strongly suggests was the corner that has not been moved, the corner that's 1.4 feet from the lot line.
Okay, thank you.
And just there was no date on that letter, Dennis, but it was stamp received June 9th, just
June 9th.
for the record, right?
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Board members, do you have any questions?
Chairperson?
Yes, Lisa.
So I might have misunderstood or misheard, but I just want to make sure anybody can speak at a public comment section at a public hearing.
Right,
So,
but we were treating the petition like it was a homeowners association.
no, everybody should be allowed to speak.
Oh, okay.
And so if anybody comes back in, maybe we ought to reopen public hearing just to give them that opportunity in the event your comment dissuaded somebody from speaking. I think we ought to, just to cover our bases, make sure that we give everybody the opportunity. So anybody watching who might have thought they couldn't speak, clearly they can speak. And if I can repeat the number just one more time before you open up the public comment. And that number is 1-888-788-0099. 1-888-788-0099. 0099. And when the host of the meeting sees that you've come in, he will address you, and you will have to hit *6 in order to unmute and *9 to raise your hand.
Thank you, Lisa. So Alex, you're on notice. If somebody calls back in, please feel free to let us know.
Copy, gotcha. Thank you.
Do we have any additional board discussion while we're waiting to see if any members from the public are going to joining us?
Well, first, I'd like to thank the applicant for the detailed information and their effort with their submission to the board. There's a lot of information here for the board to go through, and we certainly appreciate the level of detail and your effort on this.
Thank you, Dave.
As soon as how long are we going to allow for the public hearing to remain open for?
My understanding, we'll reopen the public hearing if someone calls in to raise their hand. So let's proceed with the rest of the meeting, and we'll jump back into public hearing if we need to.
So board members, any additional discussion, questions?
So this seems very clear cut to me from this perspective of, with all due respect, an architect is not the township fire marshal or the fire chief. None of us here, to my knowledge, are the township fire marshal or fire chief. We have a letter on file from authorities having jurisdiction, which is the township fire marshal and fire chief, stating that they recommend that the provisions of the zoning ordinance remain without variance. That's, in my mind, very significant. Regardless of these other issues, part of this board's responsibility is the health, life, and safety of not only the occupants inside that structure, but also of the surrounding area. And that has made up my mind more so than anything else, coupled with being a side lot line setback of where the house would be is 1.2 feet off the side lot line. I don't see how we can even entertain this with a favorable outcome. That's my opinion, unless someone can offer some counter discussion or argument to that point. I can't support this.
Thank you, Dave.
And get online, because we can't.
I've got like 3 people here and all of them have tried their phones and none of them are going through. We just called a couple of neighbors. My husband just called a couple of the neighbors and said, are you trying it again? They can't get through.
I can't get.
There's a couple callers on at one point.
So we have one person that's in our waiting room, but they're trying to call from their computer, which means that they can send us any kind of video and there's no name associated. So I don't feel comfortable putting them through.
He's trying on his phone right now. Could somebody else try on your phone at home? One of you guys pick up a phone and try to get through yourself?
We've had someone get through by phone.
Madam Chairman, if
Yes,
they have someone in their audience, their connection is very good. I certainly wouldn't mind hearing them if Mrs. McFadden wanted to step aside to have them get in front of that computer and introduce themselves. I wouldn't mind listening to them on her computer.
Oh, yeah.
I'd just like to let everybody know that I have to get up from time to time and I leave the picture because I just got out from a serious back surgery and I just got home from the hospital. So that's why I disappear at times to stand off to the side, but I can't hear you. Okay.
Okay, Kim, I see somebody standing behind you right now. Sir, could you give your name and address for the record?
John?
Hey, my name is John Schul. My address is 9693 Bonnie Briar, White Lake. It seems to me that you guys have long held an opinion that this property should be torn down from all the conversations that we've had with you over the last year. It seems like your mind was made up no matter what. I've got 5 or 6 people that are trying to call in. And I'm getting text from others that are trying to call in. And nobody can get through. I can't get through. I got through one time and then was told that if you signed the petition, you couldn't talk. Now, the people that have all hung up and quit trying, I'm still getting texts from them saying that they're trying to get on. So if you guys want to try to get on, did you get on?
I was able to get in. I'm going to try it a second time.
Okay.
We did have members of the public call in successfully.
On the second time. Yeah, the second time they haven't been able to get in either. So, I mean, people are trying to call, but to be actually honest with you, I know you guys have pretty much made up your mind long ago, so I don't know what the call is going to prove. So that's what I've got to say.
John, I don't know what
Thank
you're
you.
trying to suggest, but we have meetings like this many, many times a month, and we do the same format that every other community in our area of Oakland County do. So this is, we publicize the directions, people follow them, we don't have issues. So I guess I can see what you're insinuating, and I'm going to push back on that. You know, this board's not a rubber stamp. Staff makes recommendation, and these 5 individuals make their decision based on the facts presented to them. So there was nothing preconceived. There's no, effort being made to keep people out of the room. People entered the room. People are getting back into the room. So just to be clear on the record, this is a meeting that hundreds of communities have had across this state dozens of times over the last several months. So this is perfectly ordinary, and there's no issue here. This company does these meetings for every one of our neighboring communities. And so I don't quite understand what the problem is, other than that Alex, who's running the meeting, is saying people are using their computer, and he can see that on his end because he's operating and running the meeting. So the callers who have called from their phone are getting in. And, I just to be clear.
I like to echo what Sean said. My mind was not made up at all until I saw all the information that was presented at this meeting and that I reviewed.
Go ahead, Mike. Thank you, Dave.
Yes, Madam Chairman, and certainly this is my first introduction to this project, and so my mind certainly wasn't made up. And I'd like to point out, just for the record, in this public section of the meeting, that it's my impression, and I'm interpreting the fact that 71 people are on the phone. Each one of them represented the fact that they are in favor of this project for whatever their reasons would be, and as stated on the petition. And so I take them at their word, and if all 71 came on the phone right now, I would be listening to them and agreeing with them, and that's how I'm interpreting the petitions. So thank you, Madam Chairman.
Excuse me, Mike, when you say agreeing with them, what do you mean as far as agreeing with them?
I'm taking them at their word that they would be representing exactly what the petition says, and agreeing with the, asking us to approve the project.
Okay, thank you.
So I have one caller that is 7708 that's in our waiting room.
Okay, that's actually me on my cell phone, so I know that it works. Thank you.
Nick.
Okay, thank you.
Lisa, do you think we've given them enough time?
Yeah, I mean, you can continue your meeting. If someone still calls in, you can still obviously entertain any further comment, but you don't have to wait for it.
Okay, so should I close the public hearing and then reopen it again?
Oh, I thought that you had already closed the public hearing.
I did.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. Okay, just wanted to check. Then with that, moving forward, board members, any discussion,
So from, if I can enter into the discussion here to say, whether there is 72 individuals out in the public hearing voicing their support of this particular applicant and their desire of what they want to accomplish, or 150, from my perspective, based upon the authorities having jurisdiction of public health, life, and safety, we have a fire marshal and fire chief of the township of White Lake indicating that this zoning ordinance should remain without variance. In this particular case, I can't go against that professional recommendation. when we have lives potentially at stake here. That's all I have. Thank you, Madam Chair.
David, if I might just ask you to be a little bit more explicit, the fire department is specifically stating not that they're opposed to all the variances being requested. It's specifically the vertical variance within 5 feet of the property line. And so we grant variances all the time that they don't have any problems with. And so it's just the variance as it pertains to the proposed vertical addition to the existing structure. And so it's not any of the other variance requests.
However, that's still within 1.2 feet of the side lot line, correct?
Oh, absolutely. Yes, sir.
Yeah, so, I mean, for me, some of these other ones, I mean, we could kind of hash that out a bit. You know, I have some thoughts and concerns, but nothing that's a deal breaker about it. But it is that one side yard piece that is just a huge concern for me. And if, I mean, I might be wrong on this, but in my memory, I don't recall receiving a letter with both of those signatures about something. I mean, so it just tells me, and perhaps that's happened at a meeting that I've not been at, but for me, it raises the level of concern that they must be feeling.
That letter from the fire department was an attachment to the meeting packet.
Okay. Yeah. Oh, I mean, I have it.
And board members, there's one thing that I know from my experience sitting on this board is that Article 7 strictly prohibits this board from granting a variance that would allow a setback of less than 5 feet from the side lot line. We shouldn't even, I don't even understand how it came to be as part of our packet, because
right,
we should never, it shouldn't, it can't be, we just cannot do it.
Yeah, I mean, there could be a unanimous, we love this, let's, throw a big party that this is something we want to do. And it's not binding, right? I mean, it's just not allowed.
Correct.
Madam Chairperson?
Yes.
I just want to say that 1.2 that you're referring to, that's a pre-existing non-conforming condition.
Right, and
So,
as long as
we're not
it's
increasing any non-conformity.
no, that's
Point of order. Point of order. One, the applicant or the representative can only speak when addressed by the board. Second, that 1.2 foot side yard setback is existing. The addition would also be 1.2 feet from the side lot line. So it's the new construction that's also the problem.
Mike?
All right, so certainly I have listened intently to the applicant. I've been out to the site and I have a number of items that I'd certainly like to point out. Certainly the point that our planning department just pointed out is that if in fact the proposed addition were set back 5 feet from the property line, then quite frankly, we would have something to say, because the existing nonconformity is not a self-imposed hardship, it's there. But the proposed addition would have to be set back at least 5 feet from the property line in order for us to even grant a variance to 5 feet. But that being said, I have a number of items, and I wanted to concur with what my colleague Nicholas pointed out. We have a number of these variance requests that are not self-imposed, that quite frankly I don't have a major personal problem with, and that's the lot coverage. And as staff pointed out, they can waive that one up to a 30%. Front yard setback. It appears that the setbacks in the front yard kind of match the neighborhood. And so I could see a need for at least some kind of a variance to the front yard setback, roadside. The percent of structure improvement. that exceeds, quite frankly, what's reasonable. And I'm going to make a point that there's a reason for that. And for those in attendance, I'm a professional engineer, and I am the dangerous building hearing officer in Commerce Township. So it's my job to hold public hearings to decide whether or not homes should be torn down or structures should be torn down due to their condition. And when I reviewed this building, I can't divorce my profession when I go out and look at things. And so therefore I looked at this as whether or not this structure, in my opinion, was worth saving. And certainly looking from the outside, unless you look carefully, you can't see some of the items that maybe I saw. But before I made any judgment, I wanted to review one of my colleagues' letters, and that's Lopez Engineering. The applicant points out that engineering letter was in our packet, and it was, and I reviewed it very carefully. Lopez Engineering is an extremely capable structural engineering company. However, if you read that from an engineering perspective, they did not address or certify to the structure at all. All of their calculations, all of their conclusions state that the foundation itself is sufficient to support the loads that are proposed based upon the drawings. That does not address the wall structures or the exterior wall structures of what is there currently. And I am going to go out on the limb, even though I didn't go inside, but the 2x4 structure that supports the existing roof and the ceiling of the existing building is not sufficient to carry the roof load of a new structure, clear span, like it was proposed in the plans, as well as the second floor loading. So the exterior walls of the building are not sufficient to carry the loads. So that being said, in my professional judgment, the only thing left on the site is the foundation, which is probably less than that $3,800 that the assessing department has placed for the value of the structure. I do not believe that the township, it would be proper for this board to grant any variances that allow the existing structure to be used to save the foundation only, when the entire structure could be rebuilt, quite frankly, to not need any variances. But as I pointed out in my first presentation, and my first part of it, is that I'd be willing to entertain some variance request, but certainly not on the existing structure and not 1.2 feet from the property line. So I believe that the petitions misled the signators on that, in that it's like, would you like us to improve this lot? Yes or no? Well, yes, please improve it, because the existing home, quite frankly, I wouldn't want on my lake or adjacent to my property either. However, if you said, would you like the existing structure torn down and rebuilt per the township standards? Yes, please. And that's what I would sign. So the applicant's attorney represented the fact that this is an extremely valuable piece of property, and man, is it. I'd love to have that piece of property. It's a gorgeous piece of property, but that's where the value is, in the property, not in the structure. And if Mrs. McFadden were to go away and sell it, somebody would love to be able to tear everything down and put their beautiful lifetime dream home on that piece of property in a heartbeat, and she'd have no problem selling it. So in my opinion, this board, and I would not vote to grant the variance to allow that 1.2 foot to remain. The other items, the cost, the lot size, all of those things that I mentioned would certainly be negotiable. The spirit of the ordinance, however, is to eliminate structures such as this and allow for structures to be built in compliance with the zoning ordinance as it currently stands. And I'm going to agree with the applicant's attorney in that, and we've already talked about this as a board member to the planning department, where sewers are available, that 20% lot coverage. That's why the that's why the planning department has the ability to do some waiving of that percent coverage. These lots are small, and to put the proper home in it for a modern home, yeah, we're going to have to give on that. And the planning department's in the process of addressing that. You can tell I kind of ramble a little bit, guys, and my colleagues know that. But I feel very strongly that this particular project should not be constructed as submitted, and the owner should go back and build a home in compliance with the township zoning ordinance.
Thank you, Mike. Board members, is there any other comments somebody wants to make before we move on to a motion?
I would just like to thank Mike for all the information and the detailed report that you just gave. That was very helpful, and I think it explains the ordinance and why it's in effect. So I appreciate that. And I guess my concerns also are the letter that we received from the fire department and the fire chief.
Thank you, Debbie. Do we have somebody that would like to make a motion?
Chairperson, before a motion is made, can we just confirm with Alex that there's nobody in the waiting room and nobody?
Certainly. Thank you, Lisa. Alex, you're up.
Yes, I can confirm that there's nobody waiting.
Okay, then with that, we will move on to a motion.
I'll make the motion.
Go ahead, Dave.
Okay. You want to give me a minute here, please?
Absolutely.
Okay. I move to deny the variances requested by Kim McFadden for parcel number 12-14-280-014, identified as 9120 Buckingham Road, due to the following reasons. Since the subject property is a double lot, there are legal alternatives available to the applicant to make improvements to the existing structure or build a new house in accordance with the zoning ordinance. 2, the applicant has not demonstrated a hardship or practical difficulty that justified the variances being requested. 3, the applicant's alleged need for the requested variances are self-created. 4, the proposed project would result in substantial adverse impacts on properties in the vicinity. 5, the applicant has failed to demonstrate the requested variances are the minimum necessary. 6, the public safety concerns identified by the township fire department. 7, the requested variances would increase the cubic content of the non-conforming structure by 3,897 square feet and increase the extent of the non-conformities. 9, I'm on 9, correct? 9, yes.
Yes.
The value of the proposed improvements exceeds the allowed value of repairs and maintenance to a non-conforming structure by 8,967%. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Dave. Is there a support?
I'll support, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mike. Is there any discussion before we have a roll call?
Just real quick, just for the record, there were 8 reasons, not 9. So I don't want in the minutes people to think, hey, where's the 8th one? There were 8.
You're right. I just counted them. Thank you, Justin.
Thank you. I need to go through grade school again.
If there's no discussion, then Hannah, could we have a roll call, please?
Yes. Powell,
Yes, for the reasons stated in the denial motion.
Shellac,
Yes, for the reasons stated, and I just really want to emphasize the safety aspect of the proximity to the side yard border.
Walls,
Yes, for the reasons stated.
Spencer,
Yes, there are legal alternatives that are available. There's not been a hardship or practical difficulty existed. I do believe this is self-created, and that the public safety concerns identified by the township marshal, fire marshal, and township chief.
DeHart,
Yes, for the reasons stated.
With that, the variance is denied. You have 30 days in which to file an appeal. As I stated at the beginning of the meeting, there is no board that can overrule this decision. Recourse would be circuit court. Justin, do we have any other business?
There is no other business tonight. Just a heads up, your next meeting is September 24th. We will hold the regular meeting that will start at 7 o'clock, and be prepared for a long one. There's 6 cases on the agenda.
If I could say something real quick.
No,
I just wanna
sorry,
No, sorry.
the case is closed.
I just want to say
No,
thank.
We
sorry,
have a
point of
mo-
order. No,
Do we have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make the motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Dave. Do we have a support?
Support.
Thank you, Debbie.
Okay,
Thank you.
everybody, thank you for your courtesy tonight. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks, Alex. I appreciate all your help.
thanks, Alex.
Hey, thank you, everybody. Appreciate it.
Alex.
Yep.
Thank you.
Good night, everyone.